There we go.
All righty, there we go. Well, welcome back to the Love and Victory Show with Val. As you guys can see, we have our fantastic guest in studio.
Mhm.
So we are ready to get this show on and popping. And before I go any further, I want to introduce our guests and then we're going to roll right into the show. Again, I chose you. Our first guest is Andrea Stallworth.
Yes.
Welcome aboard. You might
Thank you.
scoot up to the.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, to the mic. There you go.
Mhm.
Andrea, this is Andrea Stallworth in that beautiful blue
Hi.
shirt on.
Good
welcome,
morning.
welcome, welcome, welcome. And then we have Callie Smith. And this is Callie Smith in this brown blazer that I'm like, I'm gonna have to get her for that blazer. I like that blazer. And then we have Sami, and I'm so sorry, Sami. I do not want to mess that up. Sami in the black jacket. Sami, can you please pronounce your last name for me?
Schlosser.
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 Yeah.
Schlosser.
Is
Oh,
it Dutch?
It's German.
German?
it's German. Okay. All righty then.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the Love and Victory Show with Val. We're going to go in with the acronym and then I'm going to come back and tell you guys a little something. Go ahead.
Okay, so for the acronym of the day,
Hmm.
the word is adopt. So our title for today is I chose you. The word is adopt. A stands for ambivalent, mixed or contradictory ideas about someone or something. Diverse, having variety. Optimal, best, most favorable. P, paternalistic, acting very parent-like. T, trust, firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something.
Mm.
So go ahead.
Okay, and so that is the acronym for our show. We like to try to break the show down with an acronym to kind of give you guys and give the listeners the concept of what the show is going to be about. We start off with questions, but it's not just a question and answer. It's just our way to get a conversation going. We like to be just authentically who you are, what you know, and what you bring to the show. Just be yourself, relax. And I may call on you directly, or I may just throw a question out there and you just jump on it wherever you feel quite comfortable at.
Hmm.
All righty then. Well, let's just get this show going.
All right. We want to take an opportunity to thank the hundreds and thousands of you that are viewing the show today. Thank you
Yeah.
all for tuning in to the Love and Victory Show with Val. Don't want to make our guests too nervous. So that's why I'm letting them know that there are hundreds and thousands of people watching the show today.
Y'all know we don't know what we're gonna do with Brother Carter. He is here to always stir up something. So welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, ladies.
All right.
All right.
I think I want to do something.
What you want to do?
I want to do something a little different.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm just
She
gonna
good.
go. Adoption is the journey of infertility, the effect of adopting children, and their emotions that come with that. So, has anybody, I'm just going to ask you guys directly, how has adoption impacted you or you? If you guys don't mind, just kind of tell us how that has impacted you before I start with the questions.
Don't you mean?
How has it impacted? Have you adopted someone, or do you have family members, or do you have friends? I just kind of want to know
Let's
how.
let's go there. Let's
Yeah,
see
let's
how they
just-
fit into the
How
show.
do you fit into the show?
Okay, go
I
to
guess
your
I'll
right
start to my
first.
right.
There you
Sounds
go.
good.
There you go.
Mhm.
For me, I personally have been adopted from China. I was 9 months old. And I think for me, though, when it comes to adoption, it's just a part of my story, my journey. And I do think I've evolved by, not making it more of a sense of identity. It's more of just, something I tell people that, I bring to the table and that's different about me. And it has given me a different outlook. But I think that, I would have been, I'm where I'm supposed to be.
There
Right.
you go. I like that. I like that.
Are you grateful for being chosen?
Yes, I am very grateful, especially from where I've come from, just
Mhm.
because I have visited back in China and kind of where I was
Mhm.
wasn't the best to,
Mhm.
the opportunities I have here and what I've been given.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, we're going to dig into that a little bit. And I love the fact that you said that you're happy that you were chosen, because the one thing that I do believe is that when you have the opportunity to adopt someone, you made a conscious decision. You've chosen to love and to help. And not all, you've chosen that. So I'm
Mhm.
glad you. And now I'm going to turn to my left.
Yes.
How does it impact you?
It's been a great, one of the best choices I've ever made.
So you've
I've
adopted
adopted
some.
a child.
Okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I adopted my daughter. She was 1 day old.
Okay.
As a single woman,
Oh wow.
Mm.
I adopted my child, and something that's almost unheard of, to choose to
Mhm.
be a single
Mother.
mother.
Mhm.
But it was a desire that I had more than anything at that time.
Mhm.
And so it's been fantastic. Yes, my daughter's the love of my life.
So that desire didn't come from flesh and blood.
Oh no, that came from the spirit, and
Yeah.
he's the one that gave me a
Mhm.
child at 1 day old, because
Mhm.
the whole process was virtually supernatural.
Wow.
Wow.
Look at God.
That's a blessing.
That's a blessing.
Mhm.
And that's a blessing that you listen to the sound voice of the Lord and
Yes.
acted upon those.
Yes.
And that I
Mhm.
waited
Mhm.
for
Yes.
him to make the choice,
Mhm.
because I could have made several different choices,
Mhm.
but I did not. And it was a struggle, because at the time I adopted my daughter almost 25 years ago,
Mhm.
again, it was unheard of of a
Single
single
mother.
woman
Mhm.
Mhm.
adopting a child, and there were families ahead of me
Mhm.
who were in line,
To get a child.
but
And God
I was
push
chosen,
you to there
Mhm.
you go.
and my daughter was
Look at
chosen.
God.
Look, wow, that's
Mhm.
beautiful.
Mm.
You know.
Say she wasn't chosen, you was chosen. Huh?
That is simply
And
beautiful.
I've always told my daughter we adopted each other, because
Mhm.
God was in the middle.
Oh, I know this is getting ready to be a heavy
Yeah,
and a
yeah.
beautiful conversation.
Can I
today.
go off track for a second?
Okay, so yeah, go ahead, Brother
Yes.
Carter.
I'm talking to Miss Andrea. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Mhm.
When did you adopted her, like at 1 day old?
Yes.
Well, when did you decide to let her know she was adopted?
Well, I was not going to,
Mm.
but something I found out, you always have to protect your child's story,
Mhm.
because there are always going to be people that want to know how,
Mhm.
when, why,
Right.
what
Mhm.
happened.
Nosy
Mhm.
folks.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Running
what they
their
used to
mouth.
call me back in the
Mhm.
day.
Mhm.
But yes, people wanted to know, but they could not be of benefit to us. So I
Mhm.
had to protect her story and my story.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I was threatened by someone that they would tell her. So I
Oh,
had to tell
wow.
her. And
Wow.
so I told her, she was about 6 years
Mhm.
old.
Mhm. Wow.
Well,
Beautiful.
that's good that that person forced you to tell her.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I get what you're saying about
Mhm.
it's good that they force. It's
Yeah.
the fact that someone would do that to
Yes.
me. I
Yeah.
would think is mean.
It's mean
However,
spirited.
Yeah.
but God used their
Mhm.
wrong
Ignorance.
actions
Yes.
and ignorance
Mhm.
to be a blessing for you and
Mhm.
your daughters. So
That is
I'm just grateful to God that He gave you the strength and the courage to be able to tell her the truth.
Mhm.
We have-
Before we get to the question, that we want to go to Miss Sammy and
Yes.
get her
Okay.
story right
Yes.
quick.
And how do you line up, Miss Sam?
So my adoption story.
Turn the mic
Oh.
towards you. Yes.
Sorry.
There you go.
So my adoption story is a little bit different than kind of everyone else's in the sense that I was older when I was adopted. Like I was about 18, 19, and I got adopted in by a family at my church because I came from my upbringing was not very great. And I just grew up in a very volatile just
Environment.
household and
Mhm.
environment. And so when I moved down here, struggling to just get by and with COVID and everything, I mean, when the world had shut down, I felt like everything was like shut out from me.
Mhm.
And a family at my church adopted me in and brought me in and
Mhm.
basically gave me a second chance. Like it's literally just the epitome of what God does for everybody, that no matter how old you are, no matter how young, no matter what, God will come and redeem
He
you.
still has
He
your
still
hand
has
on your,
you.
he
Yes.
still has it.
Mhm.
And I don't necessarily know if he needed to redeem you, other than I think what he did is he wanted you to know that he had a safe place and loving people for you. You were not
Mhm.
alone.
Yeah.
So
And
wow,
that you are valued.
you are valued.
Yes.
So wow, this is, as you guys can see, this is going to be a very, very good conversation. And
I don't need this paper for this conversation.
Uh-huh. All righty, Aaron. Abigail, you said we had a question.
Yes.
Okay.
This is on YouTube, and I believe this is a question for Andrea from Pierce Reese. He says, or they say, what was their reaction after knowing that they were adopted?
Mm.
Okay, I can recall the exact place
Mm.
and everything.
Mhm.
We were on our way to the library
Mhm.
one Saturday morning, and I set my daughter on my bed, and well, of course, I had to think about it before I talked with her, and I just looked at her and I told her, I asked her, "Do you know what adoption means?"
Mhm.
And she was like, she really didn't know.
Mhm.
And so I told her, I said, it's when, a person chooses a child and mommy doesn't carry the baby in her stomach. And,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and I said, you are adopted. I adopted you. And I'll never forget. She says, me, mommy, me,
Oh.
And so, yes, at that young age, they really don't understand
Understand,
the
yes,
complexities
of
that may
that.
be involved.
Mhm.
And maybe
Mhm.
there are not so many complexities. I don't
Mhm.
think it was with her. But yes, that's and since then I explained to her
And
through
she got.
life
Mhm.
what adoption was, the
Mhm.
choosing of one another and how
Mhm.
Christ chooses us. And
Mhm.
and that it's a beautiful thing. And then she grew up around several other adopted children. She
Mhm.
went to
Mhm.
school with them, like
Mhm.
daycare and school and stuff. So she saw lots of families
And
that
friends.
were different.
Oh, and I think that just here, I keep going back to you being honest with her.
Mhm.
And I just think that as hard as it and as scary as it was, because I can only imagine you not wanting your child to feel like she's yours.
Mhm.
And when in fact, that was already sealed when God connected y'all.
Mhm.
But the fact that you needed to protect her from people just being mean.
Mhm.
I mean, it's
Yes.
just.
And it's important. That taught me a lesson too, because sometimes the unknown
Mhm.
is what stifles us.
Yes.
Mhm.
Fear.
Yes.
Mhm.
But when I lay it out on the table, you have no power
You
over
you
me.
you take your power. You hold on to your
It,
power.
it belongs to you.
For God did not give us a spirit of
Uh-huh.
fear,
Mhm.
but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. And it took a great deal of power, I'm sure, to make that transition to tell your daughter that she was adopted, because I know had to be a great deal of fear sitting there
It was.
prior to.
So how did you
Mhm.
find out that you were adopted?
Yeah, so for me, I grew up, my mother always told me I was adopted, whether I, knew what that meant or not.
Mhm.
So when people would ask me, because my mom is not the same ethnicity as I am. So
Mhm.
it was very apparent that,
We're
Mhm.
different.
we were different. And so when people would ask, I'd just be like, oh, I'm adopted. I didn't know what that
You
meant.
didn't know what that.
Mhm.
But, growing up, since I've already had that, in my head, as I learned what it really meant, so it wasn't a shock when I got older and really digested it. But
Mhm.
I do kind of want to say, what Andrea said, like choosing to tell your child that you get to control the narrative that goes out.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that is so important because, you know, and there's always the hesitation of the right time, right place, how you
Mhm.
say it. But I think it empowers us for people who are adopted to go ahead and be able to say that and speak upon it. And they can say, how they feel about it, whether it's good or bad, but at least they,
They know the truth.
they know the truth, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So.
I had a feeling that it's a certain level of a sense of something not connecting here when you're adopted as a child, especially when, like your situation, your child, I don't know, maybe she didn't even know she was adopted because you. Y'all look just alike.
I don't
too.
necessarily
Yeah.
know at that age whether or not, I hear what you're saying because you can clearly see something. And
Right.
before I go into that,
Yeah.
if you don't mind,
Yeah.
so you're from China.
So I'm from China,
And your
and
parent-
my mom is white. Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
so you can clearly see the difference.
Mhm.
Right.
Where in your case, she wouldn't see
Right.
the difference.
Mhm.
And so, but I think the issue would be sometimes it's people closest to you. And that's that do things. You would think they wouldn't say something. It's not necessarily going to come from a stranger because they don't know or they don't know how you're going to respond to. But to have someone that is close to you, and you didn't even have to tell me. I just only can
Well,
imagine.
if you have other children and they come from them, they'll
That's
be
true.
getting mad and have an argument. That's why you adopted.
Yeah. Well,
So-
I think I don't necessarily know if it would be from the children because I think if you raise those kids as siblings together in a closeness and you've not shown a different, I would hope that they wouldn't say something like that. But
Baby,
baby,
not
in
being-
today's age,
you're
I
not
know.
in the real world
Yeah,
right
okay.
now.
I don't know. When I was a child growing up, all of my siblings looked alike. It's 5 of us
Mhm.
except me.
Mm.
And they always told me I was adopted.
Mhm.
So whether it was true or
Yeah.
not, they always told me I was
See,
adopted.
that's what
wow.
they do.
Oh
Yeah,
God.
they
Oh,
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my auntie, okay, since
Yeah.
we telling the truth, my auntie used to say that to me about that wasn't my daddy's
And, yeah.
child. He said she was just mean, but
Yeah.
I am my daddy's child. Okay, well, I'm gonna
Let's
just
talk about the can I bring up something right quick?
go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
This is Brother Carter, y'all. Go
I
ahead.
want to ask,
Go ahead.
what's your name?
Callie.
Callie.
Mhm.
Callie. Going back to Callie.
Oh, every time I hear that.
I knew it was gonna come out. I knew it. I was waiting on it.
Yeah. And then they're like, "Are you really from Callie?" I'm like,
Okay.
Okay, Callie, the resentment factor.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes. How did that affect you? Do you have any resentment for your biological mother?
I don't. And I can't say I would feel differently if my situation or my story was different.
Mhm.
But specifically for me, right?
Mhm.
So I'm a 98 baby. And back then in China, you had to give up your
A
child
female.
if you had two.
Mhm.
Mm.
And
Yes.
Mhm.
they
Can you talk on that story a little
yeah,
more?
and
Yes.
and so the information I know is solely based on what my mom told me, what I've seen growing up. But
Mhm.
in China, you're only allowed to have one child for the longest,
Mhm.
just because of the overpopulation, right? And just making sure that, I guess, culturally they favored males,
Mm.
right? They carry the family name, right? They're the ones who are going to be the providers.
Mm.
So
But that
And the-
sounds kind of crazy when you carry the family name,
but
but you can't
that's-
have but one child.
But that was the government then.
Yes,
That had nothing to
Yeah.
do with them. That was the government
No, I-
because they were trying to keep the population. The population was
the population and just I would say culturally,
culturally, yeah.
that they're were more traditional in that
Mhm.
sense, right?
Mhm.
Of viewing that way. And so, how I always looked at it, and whether this be true or not,
Mhm.
we definitely think that I had another sibling
Mhm.
and that it was a male and that they chose him.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I didn't have any resentment towards that because, and back then it was very, you either you're gonna give up your child or there's
Mhm.
gonna be consequences,
Mhm.
right? And I'm from a very, I guess, underdeveloped part of China.
Mhm.
So I knew that my parents did not have the resources to
Mhm.
go ahead and even fight that,
Mhm.
right? So I chose to go with the story that yes, they chose to give me up. It
Mhm.
wasn't maybe their first choice.
Mhm.
And no, I don't have any resentment. I mean, I will say one thing that I've learned and I've heard and I carried with me is that it is easier to give birth to a child than raising a child. And I
Mm.
think that's really true.
Mhm. Do you know them? your parents?
I don't.
She
Biological?
I don't.
She
No.
don't.
And my adopted mother, she always asked me, do you want to try? Like, I'm more than willing to give you the resources to go into the
Mhm.
database, because a
Yeah.
lot of times people are doing that now,
Mhm.
especially specifically for Chinese babies, because it's so common. And I tell her, no, I don't feel a need to. Not saying I wouldn't if the opportunity came up necessarily,
Mhm.
but one, the biggest thing, I probably can't communicate with them without a translator, right?
Mhm.
And I don't feel necessarily a connection with them just because I'm blood,
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
right?
Mhm.
I would think it'd be cool to see my brother just
Yeah.
to see
Yeah.
what we
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
look alike. But
Yeah.
other than that, I don't feel kind of any
Yeah.
animosity.
So
to
if you're
people.
dating a Chinese guy, be careful. It could be your brother.
What we gonna do here? You gotta
If you
love
can't
him,
do, you
submit. Okay, I'm gonna turn to. Thank you for being so transparent.
Mhm.
I'm gonna ask you, Sammy.
Sam.
If you don't mind, can you tell me a little bit more of your story and how did you end up with the church, your church family?
Yes. So I actually am not from Texas.
Mhm.
I'm from Washington State.
Okay.
And so that's where I was born and raised. And I grew up
The Seattle area? What?
Yes,
Yeah.
Seattle area.
Okay.
And I mean, in the beginning, my childhood was as normal as it could get. The only thing was my older sister, who was my half sister. She was just not the best to me. She wasn't very kind. So that was already right off the gate, like already something there. And then my parents had another kid, and then they divorced after that. And at first, things were as any divorced family is, you split the times,
Mhm.
there's custody.
Mhm.
My dad had us on the weekends or Wednesdays, every other week. My mom had majority of custody. And at first it worked. And then after a few months, things started kind of going downhill. My
Mhm.
mom brought in another man
Yeah.
into the house who kind of became like our stepdad. My older sister harbored a lot of resentment and anger towards him.
Mhm.
And at the time, I didn't understand why. Now I kind of know. And I have a lot of peace about it
Mhm.
now. But I mean, at the time, I was confused. I was angry. I was hurt. I was like, why is my family broken up?
Yes.
That's how it felt. And so I spent my early teenage years dealing with basically a large custody battle between my dad and my mom. And it was just back and forth. And my mom was not the greatest woman. And she did a lot of things. She said a lot of things. She made me feel a lot of anger and resentment towards my dad for kind of the way how things came out and the divorce and everything. So for years, I was left believing my dad didn't want me, because that's what my mom had told me, is that my dad just didn't want to be a part of our lives, did not want a thing to do with us. That's why he divorced her.
Oh, wow.
And so for years, I thought that. And eventually, when I got older and I wanted to start going into college, and specifically, a big reason I moved down here was because I was super obsessed with the show Houston SPCA, which is a show based around basically cops saving animals. And so
Oh.
I wanted to do that.
Oh, wow.
And so I had this goal that I was going to move here, and I was going to move into the Houston area, and I was going to go rescue animals, and I
Oh,
was going to
wow.
work at the animal shelter. Things have changed now,
Yes.
but that's okay. I'm
Yes.
okay with that. I'll eventually start volunteering there. I still have that passion to do that. So I moved down here, and I lived with a friend of my boyfriend's for a while, and the situation was not very great. They did not have the means or the money to help support me trying to basically get on my own, get my own job. And then as soon as I got a job, COVID shut down the world.
Oh, God.
Wow.
And so I lost that job. And so for months, I was without a job. I was 18. I was trying to just make ends meet on basically $5 every 2 weeks.
Oh,
I
wow.
made my
God.
means by just drawing and sketching and just doing side jobs.
As you see, ladies and gentlemen, we have three very powerful stories here and we cannot get to all of the questions that need to be asked from these three ladies. So we ask that you guys would help us out in putting your questions in the where do you put it in the chat? That's what it's called.
Yeah,
Okay.
you did good. You did good.
Put
Yes.
your questions in the chat, and we'll try to get to those, as many of those as possible.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, so then how did you, so you found a church home,
Yes.
and then from
So
the church home.
yes, I found a church home and I'd been going there for a while, and I was a part of a smaller group that was based around helping people deal with life issues, dealing with hurts, hangups, and habits. It's called Celebrate Recovery.
Mhm.
And so I was a part of that because I was just dealing with a lot with coming to terms with my upbringing.
Mhm.
But then, obviously I still had some character flaws. In my personal opinion, they were character flaws that I wanted to cut off. I didn't want to end up like my mom. I was so adamant about not ending up like my mom that I just was doing everything I could to just learn better habits. And it's a Christ-centered group.
Mhm.
And that is where I met my adopted mom.
Oh, wow.
And she had it on her heart to have to adopt.
Mhm.
And God actually told her, like, you should adopt. And she had been thinking about it for a while. And it was crazy because I had a dream where she had adopted me like 2 weeks prior. And then she called me and was like, it's been on my heart for a while to adopt you. Like, I want to bring you into my family.
Did you actually go through a legal adoption, or it's just
No,
okay,
it's like a
family?
yeah. It was
Okay.
more of a. That's why I'm like.
But that's
it's not
beautiful.
traditional.
No, it's still
Mhm.
an adoption, because she
Yeah.
made a conscious choice that she wanted to be your mother, and so
Mhm.
that
And
is
give
so
her a place of
and give her
belonging.
where do
Yeah.
you belong? That's
Yeah.
so beautiful. That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to
I think we need to take a little quick pause.
okay after I go back to Andrea.
Okay.
Okay, I remember. Oh,
I'm just helping.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you this question, Andrea. When you decided to adopt, or when the desire came, were you comfortable going to your family, or did you talk to your family? I want you to, before you answer that question, we're going to take a break, but I want you to come back and tell us, how was it when you decided to tell your family before the adoption took place that you were going to adopt? Because I think a lot of people probably struggle with that, how their family is going to
Mhm.
accept the child in, or are they going to have a problem with it? So I want us to come back and kind of talk about
As
that,
if it's their choice.
as if it's their choice.
Cut the crap.
Alrighty, welcome back to the Love and Victory Show with Val. We're just going to jump back into this conversation. I asked the question of Andrea before we went off. I asked, how was it communicating that, or letting your family know, or close friends know that you were going to adopt? Can you share that with us?
This conversation is so intimate for me. Sorry. Starting already.
Mhm.
I'm one of those.
Mhm.
So my family, I don't believe I discussed it with them after I had already made a determination, because I've always been the independent one in my family.
Mhm.
And so
You're
I
the
was,
adopted one, so go ahead.
yeah. So I actually, I lived on my own.
Mhm.
I put myself through college all the way up to my master's degree with no help from family.
Mhm.
So the determination in the course of my life, I made my own decisions, and I, let them know as I was going through it.
Mhm.
But they had no input.
They
so
had
to say,
Mhm.
they had
in
no
my
say so in your
yes.
final decision.
Well, they had input, but that's right.
Mhm.
Mhm. So the decision was mine.
Okay. Well, the reason I'm bringing that up, because a lot of times we allow other people's journeys and their experience and their thoughts from keeping us from moving,
Mhm.
because we don't want to feel isolated or alone in our decision.
Mhm.
And so I'm glad to hear you end that with, they really had no final say so in what you were going to do. You knew this is what you needed to do for
And I was
yourself.
35.
Yeah.
I wanted a baby.
Yes.
You know, I was not married. We grew up, we went to Catholic school.
Mm-hmm.
Our family was centered around the church.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certain orders of
Yes.
life.
Mm-hmm.
And not being married, I did not have a child.
Mm-hmm.
But I was to the point, you know, they say biological yearnings or may not be real for women, but I wanted a child very badly and I pursued it.
That's good.
And so I went some avenues, you know, I went to the doctor, you know, fertility and all of this. And one day I walked past this lady that I worked with.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard her talking to another lady that she adopted her daughter. And I looked at her and I looked at her daughter. They both had platinum blonde hair. You never would think they, you know, they were an adopted family. And I was like, wait, you know, but that's how God works. I heard a word. I went back to her and I talked to her. And she gave me the telephone number of a precinct judge that she knew. I talked to this judge. She adopted a child.
Oh, wow.
She got me a connection with an adoption center. And I went there. And so they started me on the path.
Well, actually, God put that word out there. And then that journey just started. He connected you with those people.
Yeah.
What a beautiful story.
That's when you know God is involved. When you start seeing everyone you contact with going to have experienced the same thing that you desire.
Yes.
You know, you on the right track, dude.
I'm going to come to Callie and I'm going to ask you, I want to ask you this question. Being in a biracial family, how has that impacted you or has it had any effect in you growing up?
So it has. I would say more recently it has. Just in the aspect of getting older and being able to experience more things, I would say one of my best friends, actually, she's Chinese, but she grew up in a Chinese household, you know, and she recently added me to this Facebook group, you know, for Asians, right? And I saw this one post and it reminded me, and it said that, and I really, you know, it connected with me that a lot of times adopted Chinese girls feel like they're not Asian enough, right? When we go out into the world and people ask about, you know, something about our culture. And I definitely do feel that way now that I'm getting older, is that I can speak about, you know, my adoption like we are today, but I can't speak about what it's like to celebrate Chinese New Year. I don't know what, you know, any of that's about, but I will say my mom made a great effort to do that. Growing up, she put me in Chinese school, you know, to learn Chinese. I will say I wasn't the best student. It did not stick, I will say, but she made an effort, you know.
Were you militant?
I didn't value it. I'll say that.
Yeah,
I didn't see the point of it. Yeah, I didn't see the point of it, just because I was content with, I'm adopted, mom. And I still do this kind of, and I know I probably shouldn't, but I'm like, mom, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, and my mom really makes the effort though of like always checking in, making sure, you know, like if ever that there's a point where I need something or I need reassurance that it's there.
She's there.
Yeah. And I think for me though, but like I said, growing up, she would take me to authentic Chinese restaurants for Chinese New Year, and I would see the dragons and at least like immerse myself kind of by doing that. Yeah. And it's funny because I realized this growing up, is that I have a lot of adopted friends, whether they're from China or they're not, right? And there's a reason that she did that, you know, and I would say Andrea and Allison were the only ones that were not a biracial adoption so when my mom told me actually about Allison, I was like, what? I was like, I didn't think twice about it. And
Mhm.
but I think that there's always, sometimes, there's pros and cons to everything,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
But I think that, overall it's been great.
Mhm.
I do think that it's on me now.
Mm.
And because my mom, like I said, has done everything in her power to immerse myself into my own culture. I just have not chosen to do that myself.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Um,
so I bet your mom is proud of you right now. If she's listening to the show,
Yes.
I bet
Yeah.
she's very proud of you right now.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I have to. I hear what you're saying, and I understand totally what you're saying from the perspective of not feeling like you needed to be a part of that as a child.
Mhm.
Right.
But as you gotten older, understanding the importance so that you could fit.
Yes.
And the reason I'm gonna jump on that is that we have biracial grandkids.
Okay.
And so it
Mhm.
kind of goes into kind of some of the same thing that you're saying there. Where do they fit? I think of my oldest grandson. If you're listening, I'm not one of my older grandsons. If you're listening, he probably is. Little Jason, he is half African American, half El Salvadorian,
Okay.
Hispanic. So, and he's living in San Antonio. So, again, what he's had to
He's
deal
half, but whole grandson.
he's a whole grandson.
Mhm.
And what he's had to deal with in school, the great thing that he had is he had a whole solid family here that loves him. And what he had to deal with in school and even in the community, it's where do you fit?
Right.
So he has you sometimes have the African Americans saying, well, you don't really belong here.
Mhm.
You're not black enough. And then you have the Hispanics over here saying,
You too, black.
you too black.
Right. But,
So
but that's the issue, I think, just in general
Culture.
in culture, is that
Mhm.
you don't need to be a certain way to
Exactly.
be accepted. There's no enough. Right.
exactly.
Mhm.
You have to eventually find your own tribe.
And that's
Yeah.
actually what I'm so proud of him for, is because it also comes into you being confident and feeling good and secure in your family, which makes makes it much easier for you to deal with that negativity that you're going to run into, because it's not about you, it's
Right.
about the individual.
Exactly.
So
And I feel like also as time goes on too, like there are more and more biracial people
mhm.
and more people like to connect with in that sense as well. So I think as time goes on, that will kind of fade out as an issue as well.
I think that I really hope that it does, but
You would hope anyway.
we would
Yeah.
hope, because I think a lot of things is going backwards right now
Yeah.
too.
Mhm.
It's up to us individuals,
Mhm.
to really recognize what we're dealing with and who they are when they come with something negative toward anybody. If I was sitting here being nasty to you,
Mhm.
it's not about you, it's about me.
Yes.
And we have to really understand that when people are really spearing out their negativity, it's
Mhm.
not about
Mhm.
you, it's about them.
Yeah.
And that's why I
Nasty
say
people
you.
are not going away.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I say you have to find your own tribe.
Mhm.
Is because
Mhm.
in life,
Mhm.
generally,
Mhm.
in the workplace, in the church place,
Yeah.
Mhm.
in your everyday
They lie.
dealings,
Right.
Mhm.
you're gonna have to find, the birds,
Yes.
of the same nature
Right,
Nature,
flock
yes.
together.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
that's who you're gonna have to find, and the others you're gonna have to, get rid of
Get rid
them
of them.
because they mean you no good.
Yes.
Right.
And it's okay to say goodbye.
Oh,
Mhm.
Yes. You learn that gift of goodbye. I want to take a few questions. Do we have some questions out there?
Yes.
Okay, go
Yes,
ahead.
we do. Let me find some because they've kind of come in throughout.
Mhm.
So this is from Todd Garrett. He's tuned into the show before, and I believe he asked this question specifically to Sami,
Mhm.
asking about how you recovered from the situation. Obviously, I know that you've kind of went in with your family, and you kind of have the support system, but obviously you had to let go of something else. So what was that kind of process?
Recovery like?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question.
Mhm.
To make it simple, I had to, the one thing that was consistent through the whole thing was let go and let God. That is what I had to tell myself every day. It was, and even to this day, it's still a conscious choice of I choose
Come
happiness.
on, Sammy, talk to the people.
I choose to live in what God has promised me. I choose to wake up every morning and be grateful for the littlest things, even during the days where things just seem impossible, or like we were just talking about, the negativity spewing in, just people from the outside coming in, with all this negativity. I have to choose to ignore that. You have to choose to be happy with yourself, and it's hard. It took a lot. It takes a lot of self-reflection. It takes a lot of, having a support system really helped me, because having people who are positively impacting my life, I would not be where I am today without those people.
Beautiful.
So having a big support system, but more importantly, just choosing to let it go and to let God work in my life, and just trying to be an outpour with, Christ being in me, and just trying to just shine Jesus's light to everyone in my community.
Beautiful. The questions are coming in for you. There is
I
another.
have a question for
I now want to get this one here before it goes. Go ahead, Brother Carter. You go ahead with your question.
So
then we're gonna come
I'm
here.
just going back to her saying about choosing.
Mhm.
And my question is, have you chosen to forgive those in the past? that
Yes.
caused
Yes.
that?
I chose to forgive them, and forgiveness I learned through just basically a year and a half of therapy. It's forgiveness is not accepting what people did to you. It is choosing to just let it go, and choosing
Not let it
to
define you.
choosing to not let it take a hold of you, because being forgiveness at its finest point is yourself.
Yeah, it's for
it has
you.
to do for you.
Exactly.
It's for you, and choosing to not necessarily be like, oh, what they did to me was okay. It's not like that. It's more of, I'm not going to let it affect me anymore. I'm not going to let that pass.
You're
action.
taking your power back.
Yes,
and you're
it's a small step of taking the
Yes.
power back.
I struggled with forgiveness for a long time, because there were some things that happened to me, and every time I would hear someone say, just forgive them, I
hard.
felt like they were telling me that what happened to me didn't matter.
Yes.
And so even with my husband and my mom and everyone, what I heard on this side was
Let it go.
let it go. But no, what I heard was my pain didn't matter. And so when we have to really be careful when we're telling someone, just forgive them.
Yes.
You have to go a little further in that. And I think a lot of times we are, when you've been in this walk, this Christian walk and this journey for a long time, it's like riding the bike. You're on that bike and you just do it without a thought. And so sometimes you communicate like you're on that bike and you've been riding for a long time. And what ends up happening to the person that you're talking to that is on this journey, and they're in pain and they're not where you're at, when they hear that, they hear something different. So I just needed to come back and make sure that, because we're on the healing side, we need to make sure when we're talking to people, we're really explaining what that forgiveness is all about.
Absolutely.
And it's a process.
It is
It's
a
not
process.
overnight.
It's not
Definitely
overnight.
not.
And that's the key. That people say like forgive and forget, but nothing that we do in life is just an instantaneous thought to make you change.
Yeah.
It's a process that always has to. We're forgiving people even when I'm 60 years old right now, 61 or whatever I am. And so
61.
I still have to go through the process of
Yeah. It takes
forgiveness, because it's a daily.
It's a long
It's a long process.
Yeah. You have to remind yourself, but the most important thing is that you make the conscious decision
Yes.
to do it.
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, you want to go ahead with some of them before we have to?
Yes, this one's kind of a two-part question from Scott Hamilton on Facebook.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, Scott.
As you are adopted, did it ever affect your life? But here's the second part that I think y'all want to answer. Or does being adopted change your point of view of the people around you?
Okay, that anyone can jump on that. Go ahead. Who wants it? I guess we'll start
on.
with Callie.
Let's go, Kat.
Callie.
Yeah, I'm trying to process that question.
You want to repeat it one more
Mhm.
time?
Yeah, the
So-
first part.
How does being adopted change your point of view, like of the world, of people, maybe your interactions?
Yeah, I think this kind of goes back to kind of what I was talking about earlier, is that I've chosen to, think of my adoption as it's just a part of who I am. It's my
Mhm.
journey of growing up, but I don't think it necessarily changes, like I, I still have a wonderful mother who has
Mhm.
raised me,
Mhm.
just like my other friends who aren't adopted,
Mhm.
right? Um, but I will say it. I may have a different outlook in the aspect of I think everything happens for a reason,
Yeah.
and not everyone may believe that. And I also think that it all works out, and I think we all need to like realize is that, you know, it's not a serious, not every situation has to be as serious as you it's
Yeah.
as serious as you want it to be, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying adoption isn't serious, but I think that a lot of times people mistake adoption as um it's not a gift, right? But I think it is, because I
Mhm.
think that, you know, you never know what their life could have been like before that,
Before they came
and that's
into
what
your
I
life.
think about
Yes.
personally.
Mhm.
And I think that, it seems like everyone has turned out that they've had a better life than what they would have been in the situation. And so I think that's kind of how my perception has changed. It's just that it all works out, and no matter what, if you have that great support system and
Mhm.
people around you who accept you for what your journey is, I mean, that's the most important part, right?
Yes.
So, Callie, I have a question for you also. Uh, I know every day is not hunkadory, just
Right.
peaches and cream, and everything is uh, happy about everything. So, when you I'm sure there are times that you get into a place where you're reflecting about the adoption and the struggles of being different, I should say.
Mhm.
How do you go through this process? How do you manifest yourself
yourself.
out of that area?
Yeah. So anytime I do have, I guess, reflection time on,
Because I'm trying to get you to help somebody right now that's listening to this.
yeah. So for me personally, when I reflect on my adoption, I I really think that how I always try to look at the brighter side, and I think that if you choose to write your story,
Mm.
you will be happier.
Mm.
And like I said,
I love that.
it is not for sure that I have a brother. My parents could have just given me up because they didn't want a child, they
Mhm.
didn't have the means, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
Never,
But
you
I-
don't know the
They
struggle
don't,
there.
yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know. I'll never know the truth unless I actually, find them.
Mhm.
But I choose to believe that, the reason why is because of what was happening in China during that
Mhm.
time, right? But also,
Is that something that you think you just fantasized in your mind to make you feel better about the situation?
No, that was legally. That was literally.
it,
going
it
No,
was
no, no.
it
I
was
mean, the
it was
entire
legal, but
situation. Right.
let's say like, that wasn't the situation.
Because she don't know if that's
It's
the
not for
situation.
sure,
Yeah.
Right.
yes, but at the time it makes the most sense, I will say. But I choose to write that story,
Mhm.
and whether it be true or not, it's true to me, right?
Mhm.
So I think if you ever struggle with the point of, self-identity,
Mhm.
you being adopted, you need to reflect on, well, what story are you choosing to believe, right? And what
Mhm.
and
I love
because that doesn't matter, what people may say, right?
Mhm.
You're choosing to take that power back,
Mhm.
and that's the truth.
Beautiful.
If it's
Yeah.
yours,
I love that.
Beautifully
I love
said.
that. So
And it's a
another.
choice to receive love too,
Mhm.
right?
because us as adoptive mothers, um, the love that we feel for our children, this is a conscious choice we made also
Mhm.
to fight this battle to have a child.
Mhm.
And so we're gonna just give them all the love and attention and just everything that we have
Mhm.
And so I know in raising my daughter, there are 3 areas that I always concentrated on. And it's safety and security,
Mhm.
control and power, and I have them here, esteem and affection.
Mhm.
And so those are things that I learned that children thrive on.
Mhm.
Children, even from infancy,
Mm-hmm.
they have to have safety and security in their life. They have to have affection. They have to have touch,
Mhm.
and feel some type of love and
Love.
belonging.
Mhm.
And they also have to have some type of control and power in their life, even if they're in a crib
Mhm.
screaming,
Mm-hmm.
but they have control
Control.
over self.
Mhm.
And that's nurturing. That brings children up to become strong individuals. And so those are areas that I also try to, make certain that my daughter have, so that she could be a secure young lady and woman. And I also prayed, God, help me to remember where I was at this stage of her life,
Right.
Mhm.
so that I can give her what I needed at that time.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
When she was, if I could remember, when I was 5 or 6, what I needed,
Mm-hmm.
I tried to give that to her.
Mm-hmm.
When she was a teenager, I tried to give her what I
I
needed.
needed.
And now as a young adult, I try to understand and give her what I needed at that time.
That is
Mm.
beautiful. That-
Now that apply whether you're adopted or have
Oh,
your
yeah,
biological
Those
child.
are
Yeah,
life
those right.
things that we
Right.
should give our children.
children. I think
Mhm.
that that is beautiful. Abigail, you had something for me?
We have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
So this one is from Allison, actually.
Oh.
She has a question for Callie and Sami. And would you guys ever adopt kids if you had the option later on?
Wow.
I'm glad you. I'm
Good
glad you
question.
asked that question. That
Mhm.
you read that because I was gonna ask that
Mhm.
same question. Yes.
Before we answer this, Sammy, have you ever been asked this before?
Yes.
Because I have a million times.
Okay. Yes, and that's just because I have health issues that can impact my fertility.
Okay.
So everyone's been like, "Why don't you adopt? Are you
Okay.
going to adopt?"
Mm,
But
okay.
I'll let you answer that one first. I need a moment.
So yes, I've been asked this so many times, just because, from the people who are around me, they know that I'm adopted. So they're always like, "Would you adopt?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, guys, just because I'm adopted doesn't automatically mean I'm going to adopt. I'm not saying that's,
Mhm.
an issue.
Mm-hmm.
But I do tell them, if that's what the plan is later on in my life, yes. But
Mhm.
because I'm not opposed to it, of course, I've obviously lived it, and I think it's a beautiful thing. But that is not my plan.
You don't
Mhm.
want to feel like you have to because
Yeah.
you were
Well,
adopted.
my mom,
Yes.
that wasn't her plan
Right.
originally, right?
Mhm.
But she desperately, she's been married, right? And
Mhm.
it didn't work out. She desperately wanted a kid after that, and she was just like, I'm meant to be a mom. And
Mhm.
she was older as well. She was 44 when she adopted me.
Oh wow.
And she was like, she went to go get her master's, right? Just so she could make sure she could provide to have a child
On
as a
her
single
own.
woman,
Wow. That's
right? And we
beautiful.
know it's not the easiest thing. And so
Mhm.
I think that if you choose that, right? Because in that point of your life, that is what you're supposed to do later. That's
Right.
your future. So I think if that happens in the future, it's only because
That's
it was
what you
meant to.
choose to.
Yeah, I choose to do
I
that.
love that. That's beautiful. I'm gonna go back to you now. So I love that you said that because you shouldn't have to own someone else's decision, or you don't have to have
Right.
this badge of walking around because you've been adopted. You have to now
Right.
go adopt
Mhm.
because that's not going to be fair to the child.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. So
I agree with what Callie says. I think just because that is a part of my upbringing and my story, that does not automatically mean that I'm going to do that.
Mhm.
Now, however, I do have, like I said, some health issues to where it can impact me having like my own biological kids.
Mhm.
So the thought of adoption has definitely come across my mind, and I'm with Callie on it. I'm not opposed to it, and
Mhm.
I think I would probably at some point in my future I would love to adopt at
Oh.
least one kid
oh, beautiful.
for sure. And like I said, one day hopefully I'll try to have my own kids, and if it's not in God's plan for my life, then that's okay.
Yeah.
I want to be a mom. Like, just as Andrea was saying, that desire to be a mom, like, I work with children all day long. So I have that desire, and I love working with kids, and I would love to have a child of my own one day. So if it's in the cards, I would definitely do it.
I love
All
that.
right.
I love that. Any more questions out there that you want us to tackle before we go? Go ahead.
Yes. This is from Julie Bernard on Facebook. She said, "Have you ever struggled with self-identity
Mm,
because of this?
That's-
because of
that's a
your
good
and that can
question.
go honestly either way. Like
Mhm.
even your identity as a mother. Did you ever feel like maybe disconnected from your child, or did you ever feel like you had to maybe compensate or something like that?"
No, I'm just being a mother. I just do what mothers do, I think.
So it didn't
don't-
affect your identity as a mom at all.
I don't know. It's never even crossed my mind until so no. I think it helped my identity because not so many women, well, I can't say that.
Mhm.
A lot of women want to have children.
Mhm.
And I know because of an organization that I'm involved in, a lot of the women are all of the women are college educated, African American women.
Mhm.
And because of, there's a situation going on in our community
Right.
these days with educated women and not being married and not having children.
And I'm glad you're elaborate on that. Yes.
And they,
Mhm.
they only found out that I was an adoptive mother about 3 weeks ago.
Mm.
And you can't imagine how many have come to me. You got to talk to us about this.
Mhm.
Because of the fear.
The fear.
They've had fear of going forward
Mhm.
and adopting.
Wow.
But I did it 25 years ago,
yes.
and now the process, it should be a bit easier.
Yeah. Because there's
And,
so many out there.
Oh, it's so,
So
many. And
kids
so
need- yeah.
Do
that's
you,
been
do
a
you
prayer.
believe that there's a certain level of embarrassment that took place with older women
Adopting children. Maybe so. But I didn't consider myself older, even though I was 35. That's just my.
I don't know if
personal
it's embarrassment.
Because she have a lot of friends right now. That I'm just asking.
No,
if she-
I know.
Oh no, I don't think it's the embarrassment.
Yeah.
I think that it has to do with people begin to get comfortable and accept themselves where they are.
Mhm.
And the challenges and complexities of things, sometimes
Mhm.
they don't want to fight.
Yes.
So they will accept where they are, and life just goes on.
Mhm.
And then you find yourself,
Right.
you're 60.
Yes.
Mhm.
And then you think you're too old to have a child because of the energy that
Right.
it takes to raise children.
Mhm.
So, but this, I will talk with the more people about. I've talked to people throughout the years. I've helped so many women and directed them, not just women, but families
Yes.
on adopting children.
Mhm.
And it's not a part of my my career in it. It's just been a part of who I am,
as a
talking to
person, yes.
families and help directing them.
Mhm.
And so it's been my prayer that God will connect families to children that need them, and children to families that need them.
I think that's
Mhm.
so beautiful. There's so many kids out there, and there are also, I want to believe that there are mothers and fathers that are just unfortunately in a situation where they can't care for their child.
Yeah.
And if they're in that situation, I'd rather these children be in a loving, caring home with someone making a choice
Yes.
to love them and bring them in, because letting them stay in a situation that is not healthy for them, you're only going to have an unhealthy adult child grow up. So I commend you.
Mhm.
And I definitely, you two ladies here, just feeling so comfortable to share your story. And I know that someone was helped,
Mhm.
but I also know Abigail has something else for me.
Yes, let me pull
Okay.
up another question. We honestly, a lot of these questions we kind of already answered while like we were having our conversation.
Mhm.
So let me try. Okay, this one's a good one.
Mhm.
So we kind of talked about how, telling your children at a younger age, you said you were told, at a very young age that you were adopted. Have you ever hesitated to talk about like Callie, for instance, is the person I'm thinking might be able to answer this question best. Did you ever maybe when you were younger, were you feeling maybe confused or maybe animosity or something? And then how did you express that to your mom? Were you scared to? Did you feel like you had to hold back?
That's a good question. Who was that question from?
This is from Michael Smith on Facebook.
Great.
I kind of
Hey, Mike.
zhuzhed it up a little bit.
Great
but-
question. Great question.
Yeah. So like I said, growing up, I always was told I was adopted,
Mhm.
from day one. And I wouldn't say I ever really had any animosity towards my mother, right, for my adoption. And I think that, it's something that, you just have to be okay with, right?
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that's easy because I've
Mhm.
definitely had some of my adopted friends have hardships with self-identity and understanding, I guess why them,
Mhm.
right? But I think that's the struggle with anyone who is adopted. I think they should present it more as like, yeah, it is me, right?
Mhm,
I
mhm.
am the one who gets to be adopted, and also that's makes me something, something unique about you, right?
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times I've heard, and I guess I have kind of felt this way, but I wouldn't say I've felt it in the way of I don't know who I am now,
Mhm.
or I think that it's more of just, you have to remember when you're adopted, right? And kind of how Andrea was saying, like, it's really important how your parents upbring you, no matter if you're adopted or not, right?
Mhm.
But you also, as a parent, need to remember it's 50% of what you put in with your
Yes.
child, and it's 50% of just nature
Yes.
of what you come with. So it's always that gamble, no matter what, how your child's going to react when you raise them,
Mhm.
right? And I think that it's really important to just, if you do feel a sense of, you need to express some negativity or anything, the best way to do is just have that support system and have that safe space. And I will say not everyone has that, and so the most important thing is to surround yourself, if you are adopted, for that parent, especially at a young age, because as you get older, you can do this, but you don't have the means when you're young, is to surround yourself with those adopted children. Like I
Mhm.
said, my mom did that all the time.
Mhm.
And so I didn't think it was that abnormal, different,
Mhm.
it's more common than you think. And it's just fitting with those right people and finding your tribe. making
I
sure you
love
have
what you
that.
said earlier, and that you said write your own story.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be. I think that needs to be that thing that helps because when you said
Right.
that, it just resonated with me. You as an adopted young lady, you as a write your own story. Your story is your story. You have no control over what happened before you got here.
Right.
And you saying just write your own story. I
Yeah.
love that.
Mhm.
I love that a
Yeah,
lot.
me too. That's
Okay,
good.
go ahead.
I have another question. This
Mhm.
one's for Andrea.
Mhm.
So, how did you feel when you first adopted your daughter? Were you nervous? And I know you said that you found. I remember you told me. I think off camera we've talked about this before. You were saying that like you didn't even know you were going to adopt her till the day you picked her up, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
my
wow.
my story was a bit different because I knew I wanted to adopt. So I went through those channels of the person telling me the person, and I got involved with the organization. And so when I went there, they told their plan was to come and volunteer to make sure you wanted to adopt.
Okay.
So I volunteered at the organization. I used to go on Tuesdays and Thursdays,
Mhm.
and they had intake houses for children. And so I would go and for my 2 hours of volunteering after work,
Mhm.
I did this for a couple of months. And then I filled out the application, started going through the process. And I was going to adopt older children.
Mm.
You know, it was a set of twins actually,
Mhm.
but they had a lot of health problems,
Mhm.
and I knew that. But you know how you get so anxious
You
and you
just really-
desperate,
Yeah.
and you make bad choices.
Choices. Uh-huh.
But thank God he interceded.
Mhm.
And so I did not adopt those children. And I, you know, I just went on through the process and all. And I knew that I was on a waiting list to adopt a child. And I was at a point of my life, started going through some depression
Mhm.
and all. And I remember I went to work. I was going to quit my job. I was going to quit my life. I was going to do
Anything
everything,
to just
you
it's
know.
done.
And at the time, before change, sometimes there's a true crisis, and you have got to trust.
Yes.
You may not know when, how bad it's going to look. The storm, it's a storm.
Mhm.
And so that's where I was. And I remember my best friend told me to write out my resignation and put it in my purse because I was going to quit my job. So I didn't know when. But anyhow, I went on my way to church that morning. And I've heard God speak to me twice in my life. That morning, I was at a stoplight. I was working in Sugar Land, and I heard a voice tell me, "I will take care of you."
Mm.
And it came from in here, but it was loud. It was in my voice, in my ears, but it was inside of me. I went to work and I sat in the parking lot for a while and I cried. And I got up and I went inside and I told my my boss, that here's my resignation. I'm quitting in 2 weeks. And he was why, you know, there was no explanation.
Mhm.
I was
You're
just
at a low
dissatisfied.
place.
Yes.
Mhm.
And he said, you know, he asked me if I wanted to talk about it and all. I said no. And so he said, can we keep it quiet? Because you know, my employees, he didn't want people to follow me wherever I was going. And so I went throughout that day. And during lunch, I went to lunch and I came back. There was a call for me. I answered the phone, and on the phone was this excited caseworker. Andrea, we have your baby. I said, what? I was transported. I was transported
Wow.
5 hours after I quit my job and gave up everything.
Thing.
I got that call.
Wow.
Wow.
You quit your job and
Yes,
5 hours later.
I got a call.
Wow.
They said the nuns are on their way from the hospital with the baby.
Mm.
I said, a baby?
B.
Yeah, they said she was born yesterday on June 9th. This was June 10th. And
Wow.
Wow.
so, you know, like I said, it felt like I was transported into, I didn't see anybody or anything around me. And she kept talking and she said, you know, do you want the baby? And I said, but I don't have any diapers. I don't have any milk.
Yeah.
I don't have a job.
Mhm.
And she said, we'll help you.
Mm.
And so I put the phone down and I just, you know, just went on throughout my day. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my family, but I left work and I went and I saw that baby. She was pink and in a little pink jumper. And I sat there and I held her. It was surreal. And they said, we'll help you, you know, until you get on your feet. And I said, you know, I have to get a job. They say, no. And this was a Catholic community. And so I got my baby and I went home and I stayed home for 8 months.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I did. I had retirement. I had, you know, the financial means.
So God had to shake some things up to
Oh,
get
yeah.
you off the job so you could totally focus on the gift that
Yes.
you chose
I chose
and he
gave.
chose for you.
That's right.
Wow.
For 8 months. And so when it was time
Wow.
for me to go back to work, I got a job in 2 weeks. And you know,
God needed you to sit down and focus on your baby.
oh, absolutely. It was one of the most
Beautiful.
wonderful times as a mother. The
Yes.
complete bonding.
Yes.
And it's so odd. 8 months, you know, and
Wow.
I held her close and, you know,
Wow.
just everything within that time. So it was complete bonding.
When I tell you guys, I hate when we get to this part of the show because I can keep going because your stories are, I know that people have been blessed. And just to hear how God um,
Orchestrates.
oh my God, how he does
I'm
sing.
just keep hearing Dottie people singing in my ear right now.
Oh Lord, if it's a scene, what
He's
he
an on
time
time.
God. Come on now. Yes. You know, just think about how you just said, I'm done. You were at your breaking point. And when we're at our
Wow.
breaking point, that's
Surrender.
when God steps in and
Yes,
shows
he do.
out. So
Mhm.
I want to say to all three of you ladies,
Mhm.
thank y'all so much. But what we always do at the end of the show, I like to go around and let you guys tell us your experience on the show and leave your final thoughts.
All
And
right.
we're going to start with you, Callie.
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed it. I think this is a very interesting topic, especially because, I've never really talked it in this depth.
Mm.
So I really appreciate you having me on here.
All right.
Great.
Glad to
We're
have.
glad to
Yeah.
have you. And if you can leave anybody with anything that may have been adopted or that's listening or someone that is considering adoption, what would you
Mhm.
leave them with?
I would say definitely do it if it's something you're thinking about. And then for people who are adopted, like I've said, choose your own truth and be okay with the fact that, it's just a part of your journey. It doesn't you don't uh you don't need to think about the negative narrative when it comes to adoption. You can choose to omit that, right? And look at all the positives.
Beautiful. Okay. And then I'm going to go to Sammy. Sammy, and can you share your experience on the show and what you would like to leave the listeners with?
Yes, I really enjoyed the show. I really loved hearing y'all's stories, and I think they were really touching and beautiful. And just seeing the different perspectives was like such an eye-opening experience. And just listening to the perspective of a mother who adopted and someone who was adopted at a young age, it was just I loved hearing y'all's stories. They were incredible. And something to leave off on is I think the one thing that's really kind of just at the forefront of my mind is along with what Callie said, choose your own story. You get to decide as your life goes on what you're going to do with your life and how you're going to choose your actions and how you're going to choose to respond to things. And I think that is so vitally important that it is not too late to make that decision. And that if you're still breathing today, then you have a choice to make and you get to choose how you spend the rest of your life. And it is not too late.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. Wow. And to,
They preaching on the show
oh,
today.
I tell you, and to Andrea, the mother that has made the choice to choose her baby. And what would you leave and what was your experience?
This was a very good experience for me to hear the perspective of children who have been adopted. Um, it was therapeutic for me. So
Mhm.
thank you for doing this show.
Thank you for
Mhm.
coming.
And what I would leave with is my hope is that every child that is in an adoptive situation is having a good experience. I'm sure that not all are,
Mhm.
because that
Mhm.
life in life, we all don't have good experiences. But choose to believe the good that is in the situation,
Mhm.
because and listen to your heart. There will always be people and noise outside of
Mhm.
you distracting you, trying to get you off path and to tell you to look back.
Mhm.
And I believe most mothers who in our heart, we will help our children find what they need.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But trust your parents to help you if you need to, and not just listen to voices that are telling you to, because you never know where you'll lead.
Oh.
And I've heard of parents who've gone through that journey, and sometimes it did not end well for the children.
Mhm.
So listen to your heart and choose love, because your
Mhm.
parents certainly chose love when they chose you.
Amen.
Oh,
That's a beautiful way to
amen.
end that one.
Oh, wow. What a way. And I want to thank our amazing.
Hold on.
I'm coming to you. I do. I'm not done. I'm not done. I'm not done. I want to thank our amazing guests. You guys have been so, I mean, it's just, I can't even express to you guys how I'm feeling right now. I have so many emotions going through me right now that I can just probably take off and run. And so just thank you all for just coming on and sharing and just being vulnerable and being honest. And I'm going to
Parents. I'm no licensed professional therapist or nothing like that, but I can rest assured you should not uh, wait to let your child know that he or she is adopted. Soon as she has an understanding of, uh, like Callie's parent, mother did, always let her know she was adopted from the beginning. Because if you wait until she's 18, 19, I'm sure that child is going to resent you horribly.
Mhm.
So that's my unlicensed opinion.
Okay.
Okay. And to the child that was adopted and the parent did wait to tell you that you were adopted, I would say to that child, find a place in your heart to forgive your parent for not telling you until you were older. I know you feel like your life was just one big lie right now, but in order for you to move forward, you're going to have to find a place of forgiveness
Mm.
for your parent, that because they did what they thought was
Best.
right
Mhm.
for you. And so they did the best that they knew to do at the time. So forgive them if you can. Amen.
Amen.
Mhm.
And again, we're going to end this show with love. And I'm just so thankful to, oh God, all of the listeners, the followers that have been on here today. This was a great, great show. And
Mhm.
again, we're on every Saturday morning from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And of course, we want your comments, any shows that you're interested, conversations that you want us to have. Please go to our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, send us your messages. Stay connected. There's always something going on. We have the app. I'm going to let Abigail tell the people how they can find us.
Yes, so you can see it up on the screen now. All of our social medias are LV with Val. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. If it's out there,
Your
we
name
probably
is
have
there.
it.
All right.
Yes.
Just search LV with Val. We are everywhere. You can download the app LV with Val. We have some new things in the works. Be sure to check out our podcast. We got a
Yes.
bunch of stuff going on.
And then thank you for reminding me on that. Make sure when you download the app, you hit the favorite and then go and register so that you can stay connected and you can get the newsletters, because in all of the stuff that's coming out, we give merch away, we give tickets away.
We
but
sell merch
we,
also.
you definitely, yes, we do. You can buy merch. Just make sure you download and
You
register.
can have one of these beautiful shirts. Wear it today.
Yes, you can. And again, if everybody can look at the screen and tell
On a
them,
happy note, he's an on time God.
tell them bye.
Yes, he is.
Goodbye. We love you guys.
Oh,